To open the meeting for November 13th for the Redevelopment Commission. The first thing always on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the last meeting, and I did entertain a motion to that effect.
Go ahead.
I did notice that I was listed as vice president, so that needs to change to secretary. Other than that, I move to approve.
I second it.
All right. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes with the amendment that Tom is listed, should be listed as secretary, not vice president. The vice president is sitting right next to me.
Yeah.
And I should have caught that when I
Mary,
signed it, but I didn't.
I was not there.
I know, Mary's our boss.
I missed that
That's
very
because she
short
wasn't here, we
meeting.
decided to cut her out.
Yeah, she got demoted. You don't get demoted around here. You get moved up when everybody's looking.
Next time you get more. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. And the minutes shall pass. Thank you. And then, yep, we have our annual TIF presentation from the fine people at Baker Tilly. So, Jason, would like to take the floor.
Good morning. North Baker Tilly, thank you for having me back to do the annual report. And Greg from FSG will also be with me as well. I'm presenting a portion of the report as we've done kind of team this up every year for a number of years. And I think even before this was a state requirement per statute, we had been providing a report to the Redevelopment Commission for a number of years. Just kind of updating you on each of the TIF areas, kind of where they've been, kind of comparing the estimates with what we have actually collected, and then comparing that towards the bond payments to make sure there's been enough TIF coming in to make your bond payments. And then I know Gary also uses our estimates throughout the year to help you guys project what you're going to collect so you can kind of prioritize your projects. And then as you can see, I have put together two reports for you, the PowerPoint presentation and a booklet. You'll probably notice the booklet has gotten a little bit heavier this year, just because you guys have been very active with the new bonds for Amplify and the new TIF areas. But I'll kind of go through the PowerPoint presentation as we've done in the past. But if you have any questions through the presentation on each individual area or just TIF in general, be happy to stop and answer your questions. But the booklet is just really more detail, the backup to the PowerPoint. Has some more information on when the TIF areas were created and ended and things like that. But again, we'll kind of start with the PowerPoint presentation. On page 2, this will go through each one of your areas and kind of meet the requirements of the statute that you're required to provide. But page 1 just talks about the Mount Comfort allocation area number 1. You'll see a lot of this information is what we've gone over in the past. But again, the main reason for this presentation is to present this to the overlapping taxing units, which were also invited, and I can tell some are in the audience today. So just kind of repeating some of the highlights. The allocation area number 1, Mount Comfort North, was created in 2009. It will end in 2034 unless the Redevelopment Commission decides to end it earlier. As it points out here, and we always make it clear for all the overlapping tax units, and this is the case for all your TIF areas, you only capture the increase in the real property, so the increase in land value in any buildings. To this point, the board has never decided to capture any new equipment that's also installed. That is, you do have the ability to do that, but we've never needed to do that. We've been able to fund the bonds and the projects that you've wanted to fund with just capturing the real property. So that all that personal property has been able to pass through to the overlapping tax units. And if you will notice, if you look at Buck Creek in particular, that township, if you look at the increase in assessed value for that township compared to the other townships in the county, you'll see that it has increased significantly more than other townships. And one of the reasons why is because of all the equipment that has been invested in that township, because of all the distribution centers that we've been able to entice to come here because of all the infrastructure you've put in place. So all that personal property that you've been able to, that's been invested in the township has been able to flow through to help keep tax rates down. In 2017, we did refinance the 2009 bonds and saved a little over $700,000 in interest over the life of the bonds. And then in 2025, as you know, we issued bonds to help fund the Amplify project. Down there at the bottom, you can see this year, we're estimated to collect about $9.5 million in revenue, and that's anticipated to grow to about $10.6 million for 2026. We'll update that 2026 estimate once we have the 2026 tax rates. Will probably come out in December or January. One thing I do want to point out, and this is not only for this TIF estimate, for the others, this doesn't assume anything for appeals. And if you remember last year, we saw a pretty big reduction in the false settlement because of a lot of appeals got settled. So it's hard to estimate because some appeals, go on for years, but you could potentially see a $400,000 or $500,000 reduction in your TIF if the majority of the appeals get settled in the favor of the taxpayer. So just keep that in mind as we're, looking at funding projects in the future. But overall, the TIF is growing, and in the TIF area, in the report, we show this going out even past 2026, but just for the presentation. We anticipate that to continue to grow as your abatements on the real property continue to fall off. If you turn the page, West Allocation Area, it was created in 2021, is anticipated in 2050. This area that is also pledged to repay the Amplify bonds that were issued in 2025. And you can see this year we're anticipating $1.4 million and anticipate to grow about $2.5 million next year. Page 4, Hancock County Allocation Area number 1, created in 2022. You can see it right now at this time, since we purposely didn't pledge these TIF area to the bonds, so we didn't have an expiration date. Right now it has a 25-year expiration date, but it doesn't start until we actually pledge this to any bonds. You can see there's not a whole lot of new development out there yet, about $260,000 this year, anticipate about $360,000 next year. Turn to page Area 2. It was also created in 2022. Also has a 25-year life. And you can see there from page 5, about $10,000 this year and about $17,000 next year. So again, not a lot of development out there in this area, but as you know, we created with anticipation of development in the future.
None of these figures include EDAs, right?
Correct. Yeah, this is just TIF only. And also, this is only these estimates only include buildings that are out there, built, and assessed. So it doesn't include any future development or any known development that's under construction right now.
Right. Buildings that have been okayed but not built yet.
It's not included any of those buildings. So page 6. This, working with Gary, he provided us kind of the capital outlays, and I think he may be talking about this later with the spending plan, but this is kind of the projects that you have planned, tentatively at least, for the remaining of this year and then out through 2029. So it has a lot of the infrastructure projects that you're well aware of, and then also some of the money that you've designated to different entities as well. That first line item there, you see the amplified bond set aside. If you remember, when we issued the amplified bonds, one of the things that we agreed to is that we would set aside enough money in the allocation account to cover the next 2 bond payments for the amplified bonds and your outstanding bonds. And then anything above that, we could use to help pay for projects or give money to other entities. So this just includes that set-aside amount to show that we have enough money set aside above and beyond what we want to pay for projects. And then page 7, we looked at just Mount Comfort Area 1, West Allocation, and Hancock TIF 1 and TIF 2. If you look at those revenue streams compared to the bond payments and the capital outlays, you can see that, look at the ending cash balances. Even with those capital projects, we're still anticipating that your ending balance is going to grow over time. So that's something we'll continue monitoring for you and working with Gary, because I know your project list it's a living document, always changing. So that's want to make sure that we have enough revenue to cover your expenses.
So even with any appeals, the ending cash balance is way above what
Right.
that would ever happen.
Yeah. So we're looking, I think even compared to last year, even with the appeals that that came to fruition at the end of last year, we're still looking at very strong revenue streams.
So how long does it take? There was 2 or 3 new buildings built out there this year. They had been approved previously, like in sets of 3 or 4 buildings in
Right.
this area when we approved the whole project. How long does it take for those buildings to get into the system? There's a brand-new building built at 3 North and 5 West. How long does it take for that building to get into the system?
It really depends upon when I think the assessor has typically waited until buildings are fully complete.
Okay.
So let's say, and it gets assessed at January 1 of each year. So
Okay.
that's the key date, is when the building's complete and assessed.
Okay,
So
so-
let's say the building's complete, say December of 2025. It's going to be assessed January 2026, paying taxes in 2027.
7, okay.
Yeah.
So if it's not done by January, then it won't pay tax till 28.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the case even on empty spec buildings?
Yes. Yeah. Now, on empty spec buildings, they'll be assessed, but they'll be assessed at a much slower amount because they're empty. But yeah, they'll still be assessed.
Right, but if they're sold, we had two spec buildings sold this year. So they would be assessed next year.
Correct.
And they would pay the year after that. So those taxes won't even hit till 28.
Yeah. I mean, the spec building could still be paying taxes right now at
Right
the
now,
lower amount.
some taxes, yes.
But then once it gets sold, then the builder will probably make some improvements.
Yeah.
Add on to it, and then those improvements probably wouldn't get picked up till the following year.
Okay.
You do the same reassessment after occupancy from a tenant?
Yes, the assessor should, yeah. Whenever there's a change in the usage or improvement, they should go out there and reassess it.
But we work on a real-time dollar amount coming in is what we're budgeting against. But I think there's 16 buildings left to be built that have already been okayed. And they have a 7-year deadline from the time they were okayed unless they want to forfeit their tax abatement.
Right.
So there'll be continually, over the next few years, these buildings will be built out or the projects will be abandoned. But it still takes 2 years for those, so it'll be trickling in over the next, okay.
And there have been reports where we have projected those future buildings.
Yeah.
But as you know, the last couple of years, some of those buildings have been slow they didn't develop as quickly as we thought they
Right.
would, just because of various reasons. So I didn't want to include those in here, so this is a conservative approach, but
So
yeah.
really, the way the process works is once the building department pulls a permit for any improvement. So if a tenant moves in and there's no improvement, it would not get reassessed. You wouldn't know. The only way the auditor knows to reassess is if a building permit has been pulled and a substantial completion has been awarded, then they know an improvement's been made, therefore a reassessment would occur.
But there would almost always have to be improvements.
Not always.
Yeah, well, but
always.
unless
Yeah,
the
just
building's
warehouse,
sold.
I guess.
If the building's sold, then that triggers a reassessment. You buy a house, it triggers a reassessment by law, I think. We had 2 buildings
I was just
sold.
wondering, what were the triggers for the reassessment? If a building's up, and I would assume if there's any improvements, a building permit would be
Yeah.
pulled. And you're right, if a sale would
If a sale,
occur.
we had we had 2 million square foot buildings sold this year. So that would trigger a reassessment on that building.
And then also, you have trending that occurs every year, so a fourth of the county is automatically reassessed
Reassessed,
every
okay.
year. So
That's good.
even if
Yeah.
something were missed, like, maybe there's a slight improvement was made to a warehouse, it may not get picked up every year, but when it gets reassessed every 4 years, I mean,
Okay.
the assessor, in theory, or who they contract with, goes out and, inspects.
It's every
buildings.
4 years for commercial buildings. I thought it was every 2 for,
I believe it's every 4, isn't it, for
The 2 or
reassessment?
4?
It's 4.
it's 4, okay.
Yeah. I don't know, Greg, if you got anything to add on the assessments or?
No, and I think the whole point is when the building permit and it becomes occupied, so to speak, that would be the. Then typically after that, it's reassessed depending on how it transitions. So that's all I was gonna say, Jason, is kind of, we've got the initial
As soon as the building
know.
gives
Then we've got
occupancy, it should be assessed, no matter what time we. What a stupid law.
Or reassessment, or whenever there's any
know,
changes
it-
made, there'll be
it
kind
pushes
of a
it.
new assessment.
Yeah,
So
you're
slow.
waiting months.
Yeah.
The next page, the Mount Comfort RV allocation area. It was created in 2018. Again, you don't capture personal property, but this is one where you capture the revenue and then give a certain percentage of the increment back to the developer as the incentive over time. So again, that has a 25-year life because technically you haven't pledged any revenue to the bonds. But if you look on page 9, we're estimating about $65,000 of increment coming in a year. You can see the amount that you reimburse the developer for, and you can see in 2030 that agreement ends. So in theory, in that time, we could end the Mount Comfort Road RV allocation area if you like. Or you have the ability to continue that and just keep collecting that $65,000 and then use it for projects and serving or benefiting that area. So that's something as we get closer, we can have those discussions. But then you can see the estimated tax increment remaining, and you do have funds in an allocation account. So that's something, Gary, it's not a lot of money, but it is money that's at your disposal that you can use for capital projects.
I mean, it could be like a $3 million bond, maybe if you wanted to do a long bond or something, or just like Jason said.
Right, so if you bonded against this area here, then you could extend the TIF district, right? The
Bonding
timeline.
doesn't extend it.
Bonding doesn't extend it? Okay.
But you can go beyond this 2030. That's just when this agreement ends.
Oh, okay.
But once you issue bonds, at least under the current statute, it has a 25-year life. But that 25-year clock doesn't start until we issue bonds.
Okay.
So, but in theory, under current statute, if you never issue bonds, this TIF period could go on forever. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if just change the statute and maybe have it a sunset date eventually for TIF areas like this. But right now, it could go on forever.
Well, I can't, 5 years, 6 years from now, I mean, there's no estimating what we're going to be doing, and this is a specific area of the thing. It's southeast of the interstate, which right now we're not targeting any of that development there, but that doesn't mean that 5 years from now, there won't be targeting development in that area.
The next page is the Mount Comfort South allocation area number 2. It was created in 2020. We did issue bonds in 2022. This is kind of the HRH allocation areas that we kind of refer to. Again, so really basically all the TIF that you're collecting is to pay off those 2022 bonds of $8.5 million. And if you remember right, the company purchased these bonds with the incentive for all the infrastructure. And just as the TIF comes in, we just pay those bonds off as quickly as possible. If the TIF doesn't come in as what they anticipated, the bonds may not get paid off completely by the maturity date. So again, the developer's taking on all the risk.
You have no idea or no way of knowing if the schedule, 2026, $313,000, if that's ahead or behind.
It's behind. Yeah, if you look at this report, and we didn't project any future development, but I know the development that they projected in 2022 is nowhere near what's actually happening with just what's happened in the economy in the last 3 or 4 years. So based on what we know now, they're not going to get that $8.5 million paid back. But again, that was a risk that they took.
Right, but there is construction going to start.
Yes.
In a new hotel and conference center and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that should help catch it up some.
Yes.
And maybe a Texas Roadhouse.
So actually, this was the 9-star bonds for the water tower, but same approach, both really page 10 and page 11. The 9-star and HRH are both paid from those two TIF areas, and again, they purchased the bonds, and we structured it so that there is no risk to the county. It's just if the development occurs as they anticipated, that's used to pay off all the infrastructure to support that area. Page 12, the GDI allocation area that you kind of carved out to create its own allocation area to provide incentives for GDI. Getting issued bonds in 2023, and then also had an agreement with the county to reimburse the county for some funds that it had contributed. Again, you only pledge 50% of the tax increment towards these obligations. And you can see in 2025, should be collecting about $280,000 this year, and 2026 about $415,000. And I will tell you, in this area, what you collected in June was significantly less than 50%. We confirmed this with the auditor's office. There were a number of taxpayers in there that paid their taxes late, so should be collecting in the fall settlement, but they'll continue to watch that.
This is similar to the hospital one. We don't carry any risk.
Correct.
ADI carries the risk on this. If they fail, they fail.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Yep. And then the last page in my part of the presentation before I hand it over to Greg is on page 13. This is kind of I like to show this for illustration because I think there's a misconception. You know, we're talking that you guys are collecting, you know, some significant amount of revenue, but you have a significant amount of projects that you're trying to fund. You know, the misconception is if you were to end these TIF areas, that, you know, the county, the townships, the schools, the others would receive this windfall of revenue. So there's, you know, we've talked about this over the years, and that's just not true. Because if you remember, you're not capturing dollars, you're capturing assessments, assessed value. So I tried to show this in this schedule. If you look at the top of the page, this is, you know, Buck Creek Township, where the majority of the TIF areas are included. You can see the tax rate of $2.11 is made up of the county, the Buck Creek Township, and Vernon's Community School Corporation to come up with the $2.11. It's also important to know that we don't capture the school referendum rate of 13 cents. So we only capture, you know, of the total tax rate, $1.97. So just for illustration, you know, for every $10 million of assessment that you capture, if you look at that box, we capture about $197,000 in TIF.
So back up just a second for layman's terms. The school's referendum rate, they collect it. We don't interfere with that.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct.
I want everybody to understand that.
So just for illustration, let's show that, let's say that we didn't need that $197,000. We had enough other TIF coming in to fund all of our projects. And we wanted to pass through $10 million of assessment. So if you look at the county, you know, for instance, I highlighted there in yellow, you see on the, kind of there in the middle, the $16,588,000. That's the budget of the county that's payable from property taxes. The county is at its maximum levy, so we can't raise that a penny more. No matter whether we pass through assessed value, no matter if your expenses are higher, no matter if there's another large investment, we can't increase the budget anymore. It's because the state tells us what the maximum levy is. But if you look at the tax base, you know, it's $6,809,000,000 at the top. If we add $10 million, now it's $6,819,000,000. So if your budget stays the same, but if your tax base increases, we just need a lower tax rate to fund our budget. So if you look at the county, you know, at the top it was 24 cents, 0.2436. By passing through $10 million of assessment, the tax rate drops 0.2432. So a very slight decrease in the tax rate. And you can see that for the other units. The only two funds where you could potentially see some additional revenue are the CUME funds. The county has one, and Buck Creek Township has a CUME fund. So as you can see, if we were to increase the tax base by $10 million, each one of those funds would increase by about $3,300. But everyone else's tax rates would just drop. So overall, about a penny for every $10 million you'd pass through. So that is a benefit to the community. You see a decrease in your tax rate, but you'd be foregoing almost $200,000 of revenue that you need for, you know, future county projects.
Well, for the other entities, not just the residences, the fire departments, the schools, and you've done a decent job of trying to explain that. That is the most complex issue to explain to somebody. You know, in theory, I'm still a trash man. For me to comprehend that you take all of that revenue, and if you don't collect it the way we're collecting it, then basically everybody gets pennies.
Yeah.
Because the tax rates fall. It's for most people, it's not comprehensible to
Yeah,
them.
it's not intuitive. I mean, any of the property taxes are probably the most complicated, especially when you start talking about circuit breaker losses and all that. It's,
Max levies and everything are already hit, so it's like, there's no, yeah.
so that's why I try to point that out, because really, you almost have to hear it a dozen times before you even start to understand it,
Yeah.
because it doesn't make sense. It's not very intuitive.
Yeah,
because you
that's
do
very
think-
true. I'm still working on the circuit breaker thing.
But she was the auditor.
Yeah, well, I
And,
know.
and
I
we have
just-
arguments because we still don't understand some things that are coming
Yeah.
in, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And she was the
Yeah, if
auditor
you
for
say
8
you
years.
understand everything, you're not telling the truth.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think
That's why we have Greg and we have Jason.
I think what you are doing here is by capturing the revenue, and you did the same thing with, changing the legislation at the state by using TIF to be able to help fund police and operating, because you see, you get more bang for your buck by capturing the TIF and help funding those projects rather than just passing it through and reducing the tax rate by pennies.
Yeah, it's definitely better for the community.
So before I hand it off to Greg, is there any questions on the individual TIF areas?
May, it's okay.
Yeah, Gary, go ahead, Gary. Yeah, you're part of the public, but you're not.
Point out, on our expenses, we do have Fed participation risk. That was more real. I was very afraid of that the last days, but the government's reopened. Remember, we're getting about 80% grants on our construction projects. If we don't get those, take my line and add 80% to it. So we're always at that risk. 'Cause we have contractor
Is that
projects.
going to delay some of the money that you need? The closing of the government, because I know it takes a while to get
It is a
everything going
possibility,
again.
but I don't think so. But I'm just pointing out that as a risk on the expense side of it.
Well, Gary, I heard that moving forward, they're only funding 50/50. Are we grandfathered in on the commitments we already have?
We currently have our commitments as they
Okay.
are, but the government's shut, and then the government's shut. So-
No,
Yeah.
I thought for next year that they had come back and thought that they were gonna be 50/50.
There's always federal participation risk. We do have agreements and contracts in place with the state and the federal government.
They can't change those, though.
I was in the Army for 4 years, and they tacked on 1 year because of Iraq. They just changed my contract.
Okay.
without-
When will you,
But yes,
when
we
will
have
you know? What month will we know next year when you're,
I will know at the beginning of at the fiscal year for the state, which is in June.
okay,
Okay.
June, so we still
Yeah,
have to
it's
wait.
not
I
Yeah.
appreciate the no
'Cause they're fiscal.
speculation on the buildings, because I'm an engineer. HRA, there's something we learned from the HRH and that style of things for future projects. We transferred all that risk, and HRH has happened to eat some of the
Right.
downside of it. So those private entities are eating it, not the taxpayer.
Right.
On some of that non-development, so those worked out pretty well. And I think we're in a position on future ones, I think the council and commissioners were talking about even taking 25% of that, they can have 70, instead of having all of it, 75%, so we get something like for the fire departments or something for that, so that was something. On the last page, I know there was a discrepancy, I know Buck Creek did some work, and they felt have you had a chance to link up their CPAs? I'd like that resolved.
Yeah, Goddard's office and I had a call with them and worked.
If somebody could fill me out why there's a difference in there, I'd like to know that myself. In the future, we don't have to figure that out here now, I'd like to know that. And on this one, though the tax rates don't change, if, to be the devil's advocate, if we returned a bunch of AB in there and you're able to get a levy adjustment, you keep the same tax rate and pass it through, but that's a heavy political lift, but just clear that, present all sides of an issue. If you're able to pass it, or you're able to take the AV and get a levy adjustment, then you could capture that money in a different way. That's very difficult to do to get a levy adjustment. I don't know how many levy adjustments have been successful in the last few years. There've been some, but they're hard to get.
Well, we have one pending.
Yeah, and we're.
So, and we won one last year, so, but they're over at this point.
It's
for
risky.
the most part.
Yes, ma'am.
If Buck Creek Township could have captured the TIF AV, their 3-year AV growth appeals the last 3 years, they would have gotten an additional $407,250.
Yeah, let me sort of run those numbers for me, because that's the thing. There's some.
Yes. I'd be happy to get you that information.
All right.
And Gary, my comment was from the county standpoint.
Yeah. I just want to make sure we look at all points of view, because we can be wrong sometimes. I want to make sure that you guys do your jobs, but
So-
I like to re-review things continuously. Engineer.
Couple things, okay, we only have 2 areas, 2 contracts that the vendor is liable, right?
Correct.
Okay, hospital and GEI right now.
Correct.
Okay. And so it's feasible to say if we had a,
In a way, the RV kind
The
of.
9 story.
yeah, but in a way, or it's feasible to say that that's on the table if we end up with a very large project.
Oh, yeah. You should
And
consider
making
all
them,
options there.
right, and making them responsible instead of us taking the risk.
Craig and Jason would say you should definitely explore those options.
Right.
Palestine is setting up one right now, similar with they capture 25%,
Right.
and then they pass 75% for
Okay,
bond payment.
one other quick question while everybody's up there.
I'm trying to take too much time.
Okay, let's say the sky falls in and we get shorted $2 or $3 million. And is it possible, looking at the schedule 5 years from now, on the cash flow coming in, is it possible to borrow against the future cash flow coming in? If you got 18 million coming in 3 years or 4 years, and you're 2 or 3 million shy this year, is it possible to bond or borrow against that? That's
That's all
coming
the
in.
bonding is, yeah. Borrowing against
Okay,
future revenue.
borrowing against future revenue. So we can save ourselves if the state cuts us off what they promised us, right?
Yeah,
If we can prove
had to
that,
complete- if
we can
had to
prove that
complete-
revenue's gonna be there.
If we had a complete 80% cut, I'd have to explore that. That's a lot
I mean,
of money.
yeah,
look,
I
it's
understand that,
$18 million a year last
but there's a
year,
lot of
14
money,
we're
there's a lot of money
grants.
3 or 4 years from now, so,
I mean, we're talking adding tens of millions of dollars per annum.
right.
yeah, if you look on page 13 of the report, of the detailed report,
Yeah.
that shows how much estimated tax increment you have remaining after the bond payments, and we're talking, $8-10 million a year. So we could bond against that future revenue.
Right.
If the federal.
Right, I'm talking about the Sky Falls.
Yeah.
If the Sky Falls,
I don't think the sky will fall, but I gotta keep an eye on it.
Right.
We're 2 million short right now. I'm trying to chase on
right,
one.
but
With that said, if we're successful with that, I wanna slide the interest increase for Buck Creek.
right, but I want a backup plan. I just wanna know if there's a backup plan,
But I don't wanna hit you up for like $20 million a
No,
year backup
yeah.
plan right now. That's a little bit sky falling.
Right, we're having growth problems right now, figuring out 5-10 years from now what money we're gonna be spending on what too, because that's gonna change a little bit, I think. So, one last thing before you leave too today, we need to talk about impact. Because there's talk about impact, on certain entities and stuff like that, and I'm not clear on,
From Senate Bill 1,
yeah,
that is included in our estimates.
okay.
So we've included that. So, you're right. A lot of your property that we're capturing is commercial. Commercial property isn't going to be impacted too much by Senate Bill 1.
Okay,
Residential is heavily impacted. We don't have any residential TIF areas. However, there are a number of residential parcels in your TIF areas. And with Senate Bill 1, they're going to be receiving some additional credits that get phased in, which is going to reduce their assessment, which is part of our base, which is basically going to offset some of our growth. So that's something that we're looking at. We may want to take out some of those residential parcels because they're only hurting us. So that's something we'll probably talk about in the future. And then also like agricultural land, they're getting deductions that they never had before. And, apartments, those types of things. So that could impact our TIF, but we've incorporated that in our TIF estimates.
well, we're relying on you and Greg for our information on impact of other entities, and they're relying on someone else for their information. So that'll play an important part, probably 2026.
Yeah, we're happy to help with
Do
that.
you have just a wild guess how many residential homes that we have within our TIF area?
I didn't count them, but I know they're significant because it did,
About 300.
is about 300?
About 300.
Thank you.
It's worth thinking about maybe carving those out. So that's something we want to kind of talk strategically, why we include them in the first place. Do we think that they may get developed, as commercial properties in the future? Did we just include them because we thought we may want to make some improvements in that area? So that's something we can talk about. But if neither one of those are the case, we may just want to carve them out because they're only hurting us right now because we can't capture any increases in the homes. But if they go down, it does hurt us.
Well, they are going down.
Well, and not necessarily when I say going down, it may not be because of the economy and the value of the homes are going down,
It's
but because of the additional deductions
Yeah.
that they're receiving because of Senate Bill 1. And that's what we care about, is the net amount.
clear as mud.
Yeah, like I said, property tax in the end was one of the most complicated. It just gets more complicated, which keeps Greg and I in business.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'll let Greg finish up the presentation.
Thank you, and good morning. Greg Garatas, Financial Solutions Group. And Kent, if you recall, about 3 or 4 months ago, we sent you the trending for a house at 500, $250,000, and that. So you might want to look at that. But so to lead off, you're right, Robin. You got the concept of circuit breaker kind of under your belt. Now you have to get the concept of lost revenue under your belt, which
I'm
is
good at that.
Yeah.
Lost
So,
revenue.
which is the lost revenue that, you know, is being developed because of the residential, the lesser of 10% or 300 on residential. So I totally believe you should get your residential out of your TIF. And if it became a large commercial, you could always create a TIF then. But at this point in time, it has more potential impact, negative impact, than positive impact. So that's what I'm leading off on, in the fact that from the county council standpoint, and that what I work with is the stability in the assessed value, in the overall assessed value going forward is critical. And that's a combination of how personal property is going to work in, how the AV is going to grow, and the effect of any future abatements that the county council would grant. So on the first page, page 14, this just is a reflection of the fact that, as Jason pointed out very good, along the way, we do not collect personal property. But also, as the county council and the RDC should know, personal property is on its way out, like I've been saying for many, many years, and it's going to be sliding fairly quickly. And then, as Jason knows, that, you know, in the TIF district, the floor of 10% or 30%, the 30% floor is not going away for the people in the TIF district. But, you know, eventually that'll get corrected, I think, if bonds are not included or being paid from personal property. I think the state legislature will wake up and say, we're done. So,
Okay, so,
point on that question.
yeah, if we carve out the 300 homes that are in the TIF district.
Okay.
Okay, we carve those properties out.
Yeah.
Right? They revert back to the township.
Well, they revert back to all of us.
Okay, they revert back to all
We're
of us.
all in it together.
We're all in it together. But instead of the revenues coming to the TIF district, they'll go back to the entities, right?
There'll be minor impact.
Okay.
Very
But it's
little.
still an increase to those entities, because we're capturing that stuff right now.
Again, Kent, as Jason said, it would be dependent on if have a max levy
Levies.
growth quotient of 0, then technically, as I've told you, I think it's coming, then technically more AV won't really equate to more dollars,
Okay.
except for the cum funds, as Jason pointed out. So I think that's very, very immaterial and very, very, it's not big bucks to them at all, but it keeps your stability in your AV of your TIF district going positively up,
Okay.
not being up and down in 2 areas. Okay?
Right.
So when we then look at personal property on page 14, not only do we put personal property into the AV, and the AV of the county is a little higher because of it, and we're not capturing it in the TIF, then what that means is when there is more AV, then there is less circuit breaker, okay? So these are a negative numbers, meaning that if Buck Creek had, what's your typical circuit breaker right now? Do you know off the top of your head in total? Let's say it's a hypothetical $1 million, then it's a little less than that because the AV comes in and lowers the tax rate and helps it, okay? So there's some impact in circuit breaker. Lost revenue, I would kind of keep that out of that equation, okay? Because that's more as a result of homeowners and things like that. But I've told the council, and the RDC needs to know, the state wants to get to a $3 tax rate and end the circuit breaker impact, because everybody will be there. You know, and they're working towards that. But my point is that if in Hancock County, we have 10% growth in AV from all of our constituents making up AV, then we're that much better off, because circuit breaker won't, our tax rate won't go to $3 as fast. Now, they might figure out a way to force it to that way, but at this point, it wouldn't work that way. Okay? So the next page, page 15, is an estimate of the personal property that's in and around the area, and by all means, helps Buck Creek, helps the township, doesn't help the library because they're income tax, but helps any other taxing district that relies on property taxes in the area. And keep in mind, personal property then helps the school corporation, right? Because it will bring its tax rate down a little bit, but it will help it in the referendum area. And that's the last page that we've got here. So it is an estimate, and keep in mind, personal property goes up the first year or two and then takes a dive. And as we've told the council, can dive as much as now 5% in a non-TIF area, and, you know, depending on what pool it's in. So the next one, and here's the lifeblood of Hancock County going forward. Page 16, it's income. It's income taxes and it's wages. And you know, Kent and Robin, I've said this in front of council. I mean, I don't care if you come in and build a 1,000 square foot cracker box. But if you bring in $500,000 worth of income, or you earn $500,000 because you're rich and famous and you want to have a house in 50 other states, or 51 other states, or how many there are nowadays, you know, that's your business. But if you bring $500,000 of income to Hancock County, and your primary residence is here, and we get to charge our 1.94, great. Build your cracker box, build your $1 million home. But if we are able to get the income now and in the future, that's where we're going.
Yes.
Okay, and so now what is 92 counties trying to get? They're trying to get a reasonable home with high incomes. And just in Shelby County yesterday, and they were like, oh, so that's what I said, yes, that's what we've always been talking about. Let's do that. And, you know, it's hard. It's hard because we can't all compete. And obviously, you've got to have amenities. And should I say amenities? You know, so.
So who decides the 1.94% rate?
You.
Okay.
And you.
All right. So, and how does that compare to the other counties around us? Are we higher?
Oh, I've given you that in the sustainability, and you see you're in the lower quartile.
Okay.
And keep in mind, again, Kent, the 194 gets wiped off the slate in 2027. And in 2028, the new theater comes near you, and you know from the discussion just last week that you're going to get to decide you're supreme commander of all lits other than Greenfields and anyone over 3,500. So that theater will come right back to the county council.
Okay, so the cities that are over 3,500 though, they capture their own income tax at that point?
That is the theory at this point in time, yes,
And so
in
we
SB1.
won't get any of that
Yes.
at that point. Another question.
Go ahead.
Currently, then, it doesn't matter where the person lives as long as it's in the county. It doesn't matter what town or anything? What is the
Well, if they
income
live
tax
in
divided up
Greenfield,
between
they
the-
live in the county, so they are subject to the county-wide lit under Senate Bill 1.
Right.
Okay? So no, as a county, for the county rate, I don't care if you live next door to Bill Bollinger or if you live right here, other than because the county will get its right to levy its tax on its countywide tax.
Okay.
But your tax rate that you ultimately pay as a taxpayer, as I showed you in the presentation that we went over a little bit last week, and we're going to go over in December, you may have two tax rates added together, okay? So keep that in mind. But again, for the RDC, stability in the AV and continuing to help grow real property and have personal property as long as we can, and then providing the job opportunities. Now we just have to put up basically a fence to keep them in Hancock County so they don't wander off into another county and live. Okay? So Gary's building nice big roads, and so is Hendricks County to other counties. Sometimes I think maybe we need to make those tow roads so they stay here, but that's the key.
Well, encouraging projects that have employees that would be contingent to living in the area. You know what I mean?
Yeah, again, if you could say, we'll give you an abatement of 5 years if you guarantee all of your employees will stay in Hancock County, that would be awesome.
Yeah, but you
But
can't.
they
They
won't.
won't.
Right.
And, I've done the
that.
test, and usually about, over in Hendricks and Plainfield, it was determined that approximately 50% will stay.
Yeah, but if you have a project that the average wage is 60 to 80,000, those people have a tendency to live closer to their job than if you have a project that the average wage is 250,000.
Right, because at 250, they'll now be able to afford their new helicopter, or what is coming to be a helicopter,
Yep.
and they can fly back home to Hamilton.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're on it. Yeah.
Yeah, we want those high-income people, but yet, one of our big problems, I think, is that we haven't had affordable housing. And that's why they go to Indianapolis. They can find it cheaper there than they can here, and we're not very far away.
We just don't have the high-income areas.
But Hancock
At
is a
Hamilton.
great place to live.
Yes,
Safe and
absolutely.
secured. Brad usually, and he's sitting back there, it's so secure because Brad's on the job,
It's a little scary, though. He's going to leave.
He's going to leave.
I know. But his person that's likely to come, I hear, is good too.
Yeah.
So, page 16, you've got that. So it does obviously benefit us all, and this is under the non-SB 1 regime. So staying applicable for 27, 28, or 26 and 27. And then page 17 is the impact on the referendum. So yes, again, more AV helps them have more dollars. Since the state was so nice and didn't give them any replacement of lit, referendums are going to probably be more coming to a theater near you unless the state changes its mind and decides to replace some of the lit there for schools.
I think, as time goes on here, more of the referendums are going to work because people realize the schools and so forth have to have that money.
Yeah.
Before, it was very difficult to get a referendum through in Hancock County or anything. But I think the time's coming, that's going to be different.
So thank you, RDC. Thanks, Jason. This is kind of how we kind of tie it into the overall finances of the county as a whole. And remember, we're all in this battle together, or this mission together, and it's very, very important for us to play as a team.
So we don't interfere with the referendum. We allow that to pass through our scenario. And so if they increase that, then it just it increases to them. It takes from us some, but it just increases.
No. Yeah, and first of all, let me correct. You don't allow it by state law. It is mandated.
Right.
Okay. And so they get their 13 pennies
Right.
on the total AV, either in the county or in the TIF or outside of the TIF. That's the point.
Okay.
Okay, so if we create more AV in the TIF and then more AV in the county,
They
their
get more.
13 pennies works better.
Right. So the more AV we have, the better off they are.
Yeah, so that's why stability again in the AV going forward. Robin knows this from her many, many years as auditor. Stability and or growth, having it is great if we can continue to do that.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much.
Yep. Okay. So now that everybody knows everything there is to know about it.
You do, retaining it is
Yeah.
the trick.
We'll expect next month
Quiz?
to retain some of this. Okay, Gary, you want to give us your update so we can keep moving?
600 West is at its final inspection. However, winter came, so I got some vegetation and stuff that needs to put in. So we won't be able to do the notice of termination till spring, which is typical. But it's substantially complete. It's 99.9% complete. 300 South, 600 West to 700 West lets this winter federal closure had some effects. It's been opened. So I am currently petitioning for some additional grant money for that particular job. However, Greg mentioned that one of my peers was able to have one of his jobs come in significantly lower on Ronald Reagan, which is a similar type project what I'm doing. So I can hope that maybe I could get some favorable bid prices. But I don't like to count on that till it happens. But I'll call Mr. Ayers and see if he had any magic voodoo in
It
the.
appears to be a great climate on roads right now, because that wasn't the only story we had.
Okay, that's good news, and that's going to help assist with some things. But I am in contact with NDOT, with Lindsay and Mr. Packer to work on making sure we get some state funds to assist us on that. But we do have plans, and we're going to be okay if we don't get those additional funds. It's fine. We've planned for it. But if I can get that, then you can roll that money into other stuff. We don't have to use it. I-3 agreements are terminating, just FYI. So those are popping up. The two-stage ditch is finished. I think Chad and his crews did a good job out there on that. That payment is on this, so that should be cleared. That's up near McCoursville, help with some flooding and some exposure of the cemetery up there, so that's good. And make sure that area is still developable, because you can't develop where you have environmental problems or things like that. So Gateway spending plan is finished. Auditor, I sent it over to Cindy, so the auditor will get that uploaded. A couple notes on Greg's thing. We're about 30% in the county. That is increasing. So our employees out there about 30% in the county. You probably can tell there's been a push within the cities in some areas to get apartments up for that very reason you mentioned, Kent. People are moving here and that rate is increasing. So we're capturing all the low there. So though you don't have your $250,000 a year person sitting on 6 acres of land, you can have 20 $80,000 per year younger people who eat out and stay here and work here, and it's actually, and they're fun. They're kids. They're good times. I will probably at the next meeting, if we're able to get the additional monies or the bid is favorable, I'll probably present. I'm going to work with Jason on your numbers because I don't understand them yet. I am looking at probably sliding the sheriff and the fires, or recommending to you. I don't decide anything. You could probably slide I have inflation adjustments in there. I could probably adjust that rate and timing of it a little earlier if we're in good shape. The point would be to get it out to them if we can. So.
Well, I was going to say the end of the year is next month for us. You know what I mean? Our last meeting is in 30 days. So.
I like to see that last collection in December.
Right. If you got emergencies or pop-ups, last year we had a few. We had to, because of Amplify and stuff, we had to swing things around.
Amplify was high adventure.
Yeah, but we don't have that this year. So but then your estimates, your conservative estimates then fall to the wayside by the end of next month.
Yeah,
so.
I think we're good to go for now.
Okay.
Amplify is on schedule, by the way. There's some change orders and stuff, which is typical on a $56 million job. Nothing crazy. Tens of thousands of dollars, not millions of dollars. So.
I really would like for us to be aware of what's going on the state level and realize that the funding you think you may be getting isn't gonna come. So we need to prioritize.
Well,
We have a
I would hope
budget.
I would know. I watch that like a hawk,
I know.
obviously. And I'll be ringing your phone the second there's an emergency. The thing is, they're the state. They're not going to take the political damage of doing that until they have to. So when do you think I would find out? April,
June.
right after the primary.
So that's my concern. How does that affect our budget for what we set for next year? And we need to prioritize what is most important. Is it infrastructure, roads, commitments we've made?
I would say everything we have a contract for is going to be most important. Bond and
That's right.
commitments.
So my point is I'm nervous to commit to.
Oh,
to
you're not going to do
life
that because you
safety.
don't even do your budgeting until, because we submit that in the same time, right after things. So you're not going to have to think about it until the budget
Agreed,
comes
but
through.
you have in here through Jason's numbers, a commitment of what we
Yes,
would
yes.
like to give.
Correct.
To life safety and some other folks in the county. I just want everyone to be aware, we're subject to the state's legislation.
Oh, exactly.
We
And
have priorities we have to fund.
the only things that are contracted are our contracts with the state and the bonds. Everything else is stuff we'd like to do.
We do have
But it-
commitments with vendors that are designing things that, so my point is, that's not 100% true. We do have some
True,
commitments.
state's oversimplified. Those are being reimbursed from the state to some extent. So those vendors, we're getting all these things designed for, we're getting 80% of our money back. So I'll let you know if something changes.
I just
You'll
want
probably hear me,
everyone to know.
you'll probably hear me weeping all the way. in
Everyone
Newtown.
needs to realize that. We do have commitments that we have to pay under contract.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, if they don't come with 80%, those commitments disappear, but yeah.
Yeah, you get what I'm saying. That could be, if we're anticipating that through all the way out to 2030.
Yeah, if they say, hey,
Yeah.
80%'s gone,
Yeah.
we can get out of the contract.
That's right.
Let's not scare everybody. I think things are
Yeah.
okay. We've been doing 12 years, but yeah, my eyes are on it. I'm always
I
looking at,
think everyone was pretty disappointed with Senate Bill 1. I just want to say there could be more disappointments to come.
the French and Indians come at dawn, but it's not dawn yet. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Dawn will be in April.
Okay, thank you, Gary. All right, we have invoices to approve.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve invoices for $340,463, and that is 84 cents. There's a comma when it should have been a period.
I second.
Super, we have a motion and a second to approve the invoices, $340,463.84. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, the same, and the invoices are taken care of. I don't see anything else, any more action items on the agenda. Does anybody on the board have something?
I motion that we adjourn.
At 8:59, we did it.
We get a second? I'll second it.
All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.